When it comes to our children's education, is there a more divisive argument than private versus public schooling? Well, actually, yes, is the answer. Far more polarising is whether kids do better in same-sex or co-ed classes. Every parent has an opinion. In Australia, it seems single-sex schools are on the way out. The co-education lobby wants to make them history within 20 years. But is this a cause for celebration or concern? Freezing Chicago is an improbable place to start a story that's been getting Australian parents hot under the collar for generations. What's best for children, single-sex or co-ed schools? Do you think the notion of same-sex schools is still relevant today?
Well, I think it's antiquated, but eventually we'll realize we don't want to be segregating kids on the basis of biology.
This laboratory at the Rosalind Franklin University of Medicine and Science is at the centre of finding the answer. Here, Professor Lise Elliott has literally been putting the issue under the microscope.
In neuroscience, we used to be so focused on strictly cognitive skills. How does memory work? How does language work? But in the last, I would say, 10 to 15 years, neuroscience has discovered the social brain. And so to the extent that academic learning can be enhanced or impaired by those around us, the social environment is very, very important.
So the social interaction plays a part in their brain's development?
Social interaction is huge for human development.
Professor Elliott studies the human brain to work out the origins of gender differences between boys and girls. And tonight, the renowned neuroscientist will give her conclusions about the schools we choose for our kids. But first,
could you say good morning to Liam?
Why getting it right is so vital. So this is where it all starts, isn't it?
This is exactly where it all starts. And the idea is that they work together, they join together, and they learn about how we grow up together.
So these kids are breaking 128 years of history.
I don't think they realise how significant it is. Maybe that's a good thing.
Sydney's Barker College had proudly been a school for boys since 1890. But earlier this year, that all changed. You know, some people are calling you a maverick for doing this.
I think mavericks are the ones who make the world change.
Principal Philip Heath says he made Barker co-educational to bring it into line with the modern world.
Times have changed. We've reflected a lot on that change and decided that it's the right step for us to introduce co-ed all the way through.
Why did you make that decision? What's the basis of that?
How can you promote diversity when you exclude half the population?
You think the modern way, the progressive way, has to be co-ed?
Learning is a complex human experience, and the richer the dialogue, the richer the cultural setting, the more diverse the opinions in the room, the better the learning.
Philip's argument is simple. Life is co-ed. So to best prepare students for their future, schools should be too.
They're incredibly vital years, incredibly rich years, and the real world starts now. It doesn't start when you leave school or go to university, it starts now.
I'm sure you've seen the passion from both camps.
Yeah.
People get pretty heated about it.
Yes, they do. But I would strenuously argue that under no circumstances, at least if I have anything to do with it, should either gender be diminished because of the presence of both.
Under attack and on the decline, single-sex schools are fighting for their very survival. They now account for just 7% of secondary school students. And it's estimated they could disappear altogether by 2035. Do you think the co-ed barbarians are at the gate? How long can you hold out?
Oh, forever. You know, we've been here as a single-sex school for 113 years. We're not going anywhere in the future.
Dr. Nicole Arshad is the principal of Loreto College for Girls in Adelaide. Why do you think single-sex education is better?
Personal development, academic outcomes, participation, collegiality. We put them in a setting where there's no longer this is a girl's subject, this is a boy's subject. We take away judgment regarding their appearance, and we can actually build their confidence by tailoring specifically to what their needs are.
And then when you put it on the wheel, it just is a lot easier.
The theory is that in a single-sex environment, both girls and boys are free to be less self-conscious and more confident. Whether they consistently perform better academically than their co-ed peers is disputed. But research has shown girls who attend single-sex schools are much more likely to take up the STEM subjects of science, technology, engineering and maths. How does being in an all-female environment allow these kids to then compete with males in the real world?
Yeah, well, we're not a convent. We don't lock. Being in a girls' school doesn't mean you're locked away and we say, don't go near boys. What you do in a girls' school is you create an environment where girls learn to be able to put themselves forward so that they will have a seat at the table, so they will have an opinion, so they will have a voice, and that hasn't been silenced for them.
Because advocates of co-ed, as you know, say, look, that's what happens in the real world. And the sooner they become acclimatised to that and develop their skills in that atmosphere, in the real atmosphere, the better.
Yeah, well, let's look at the real world for a second. There's actually a gender inequity in the real world. We don't have equal pay, we don't have women in equal number of leadership positions as men, yet girls have higher educational outcomes than what boys do. So we're not trying to replicate the real world, we're trying to challenge it.
There's no doubt it's a fraught subject. But for the Rowland family, it was never about single-sex or co-ed. Parents James and Kim say their overriding concern was finding the best school they could.
To see the three of them together, Liam, they're all pretty strong in their own right. I don't think it made any difference, really.
Can you understand the angst, the contentiousness of the issue?
Yeah, I can. But I think sometimes people worry about it a little bit too much. Just chill a little bit.
The Rowlands have seen both sides of the divide. Youngest, Gracie, at 16, has just made the jump from an all-girls school to a co-ed that specialises in the arts. While Charlotte and Phoebe both went to a single-sex school and have since moved on to university and careers.
There are definite advantages that I really like and can look back at and go, I'm glad I did that.
What, without boys around?
Yeah.
Like what?
You don't have to look good, I don't know. I just think about when we were 14 and 15 and the way we probably thought at the time. Less effort through those, puberty, adolescent years maybe.
The argument is that for girls specifically, if there are no boys there, you feel more empowered, you're more confident,
Definitely.
et cetera, et cetera. Do you think that's right?
I loved high school. I didn't feel like I was disadvantaged with being only same sex.
What do you think, Gracie? You can now see things both ways, can't you?
Yeah.
Because you're back in a co-ed environment now.
Yeah. Having the guys there just makes it a bit more relaxed and not as cliquey. With the co-ed school, I think with the guys there, it just kind of softens it a bit. There are differences, but there's not major significant differences, I would say. Some schools are bringing together the best of both worlds.
There are some very good and proven reasons why single-sex education is beneficial. What I would argue, though, is that you don't have to be a single-sex school to have those benefits.
Led by Principal Catherine Jeffries, New Hall in South East England is one of a small but growing number of schools to embrace what's known as the Diamond Model.
A Diamond Model school is a school that combines co-education and single-sex teaching on the same campus, depending on the age of the children.
So from preschool through to age 11, it's all co-ed, they're all together in class?
They are, that's right.
Then you split them up and you don't bring them back again until they're 16?
That's correct, yes.
Boys and girls are classmates during the junior and senior years. But during the formative adolescent phase, classes are strictly single sex. When there are breaks, and at other non-class times, everyone's encouraged to mix. Is that the key? Is that the key around puberty?
It is. I think it's a time when most young people are going through a great time of upheaval.
Now, if I want to turn them both off...
They're developing a sense of their identity, their confidence is both growing but also quite vulnerable to knocks.
So in a sense, you're providing protection for the child inside the classroom, but then giving them the real world when they step outside the door.
I think that's exactly it, and I think that's what a great school should do.
Catherine says the school is now much more vibrant and dynamic, and there have been other welcome benefits.
We were already a highly performing, girls-only, independent school. When we took boys, the girls' achievements actually improved.
So your results now are as good, if not better.
They're actually better than they were when we were a single-sex school. And what's interesting is that when we compare our results with an equivalent co-educational school, our results are stronger, but in particular the boys' results are stronger, because nationally the trend is that girls outperform boys.
Back in Professor Lise Elliott's lab in Chicago, her research on human brains tallies with Catherine Jeffrey's experience in the classroom.
If we let kids grow up for a very long number of years without interaction with different people, boys with girls, that it will change their brains. It will change their ability to empathize and understand the other gender.
So, neurologically, is it harmful to separate either boys or girls?
Yes, it is harmful to separate people based on their biological attributes.
The arguments over the advantages of co-ed versus single sex will rage on. But on one issue at least, Philip Heath and Nicole Arshad are in agreement. When it comes to education, the most important thing is choice.
I've worked in single-sex schools, I've worked in co-ed schools. I don't think it's simply a matter of the gender of the person that you enrol. It's really about the culture that the school sets that matters most.
I don't think anyone would want a system of education where we say we've only got co-ed or we've only got single sex. We should have both, and then parents can make the best choice about what works for their children.
Hello, I'm Liam Bartlett. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.